So, the way this game's combat engine basically works, this might almost be easier, just go in battle and then go into the menu.
Yeah.
This gives us the HUD. So, every character has those little blue diamonds that you see. That's your soul gauge. The way you build soul is you steal it from enemies by beating up on them.
There's a large list of various things that give you soul. We don't have an exact list of it yet.
Yeah.
Some of them were put up on one of the Tales blogs, but it wasn't a complete list.
But the core idea, the way it's like CC, where you mostly build it by beating up on enemies, and you can see the enemies have soul too. Like that tree we're targeting now has 3 soul, and you can steal up to 2 of them, which not only limits what the tree can do, but also maximizes what you can do. And it is basically your CC meter. The whitish outline that you can probably barely see, because like so many modern games, this game doesn't believe in making the HUD nice and beautifully big, is how many things you can chain in a row. You start off battle with 3, you build up soul, you can chain 4, you can chain 5. And all moves use the same amount of chain charge. You'll see the blue will also deplete and turn red as you do combos. Different moves consume a different amount of what I believe this game calls SP, which is basically your charge on that. It doesn't limit your ability to act. You can keep using moves as much as you want. But once that red runs out, SG I guess, but once that blue runs out and you're down to all red, your moves just don't do anything. They lose all ability to hit weaknesses, they inflict no hit stun, and they do radically reduced damage. Or in the case of healing moves, they barely heal anything at all. So
you can still keep chaining stuff even but it's not effective.
It's actually, as far as we can tell, just completely unadvisable. The fact that they allow you to keep moving is just giving you rope to hang yourself.
In a couple of moves I've seen, like that really ridiculous ice backwards rotating slash that Velvet has, can still force enemies to block while you're completely drained.
But yeah, and then you see the other meter you have, not the HP meter, but the yellow meter. That's the blast meter. It's incredibly similar to what Zesteria had, but unlike in Zesteria, where it was pretty much a spend one of these to go into Armatus, then use this to heal and ignore all of its other mechanics, it seems a little better integrated this time with the rest of the game's systems.
Yeah, it basically, the biggest thing that it can do is, so I'm going to back it. I just spent 1 blast gauge from Rikuru to switch to Aizen. And the great thing is when you switch characters, you come. So it basically is a way you switch characters and get soul back. So it can be used as a soul farm. And that's just one use of it. If your soul's completely full and you're not needing to use it as a soul farm or needing to switch characters, once it gets to 3, you can use Mystic Arts. Mystic Arts at first in this game, their damage seems just kind of like in Zesteria. Their damage seems kind of pitiable for how hard it is to build up to them. But then you realize that they completely refill your soul gauge all the way up to 5 soul. And that's incredible.
Yeah, and to go into more about this game's flow, that kind of gets to the heart of it. When you're spending blast, you're building soul at an extra elevated rate. Because, normally you have to just hack away at the enemies for a while to try to knock their souls out of them, and it's a slow way to build it up. Whereas when you're spending blast, you're just building soul at a very high rate. And then on the flip side of it, the blast meter doesn't really build on its own if you just kind of sit around and fight normally. But when you use the burst moves and spend a unit of soul to do it, which I didn't mention before, but that's the critical part. All those burst moves, Velvet pulling out her claw, Laphicet giving everyone the all divide, Eleanor's launcher, Rikuru's counter, Magalu's spell stealing, Aizen's teleport in and do unreasonable damage.
Yeah, you can watch real quick. I'll just show it right here. So I use the claw, now I'm down to 2 soul, as you can see.
Yeah, but he's up to 2 blast. So every time you use those moves, you consume a unit of soul and gain blast. Whereas when you use blast, You obviously consume your blast meter, but you build soul. So this game kind of has that resource oscillation where you go back and forth. If you just spend as quickly as it will let you, you will drain yourself. But if you integrate in appropriate comboing, you can kind of sit on the high end of the resource curve and just play very aggressively.
Yeah, and if you do happen to completely drain yourself, at that point, if you've built up 3 blasts, it's like you get yourself down to 2 because you've been holding the enemy in hit stun and doing all these massive combos for an extended period of time. Well, at that point, you just use the Mystic Art and you get all of your resources back, basically.
Well, you spend half your resources to get the other. It's the oscillation.
Yep.
And you'll also notice the 2 reserve characters, how you switch between them by hitting up and down on the D-pad. Now, unlike some other Tales games that had systems like Chromatis that were kind of anti-co-op, this game is very co-op friendly. Any player has control of this. You can just hit left or right on the D-pad to cycle which player has the reverse characters. And you see it even shows 2P to show 2P's the one currently controlling where they go. So, there I forced Laphicet in, and he killed the enemies, which also means you can use it as an AI management technique.
Sorry about that, I was just kind of beating up on the enemies while you were explaining stuff. I wasn't even looking at my character.
But it does mean that all players have equal access to the system, and as far as we can tell, when you just want to spend 1 blast to switch between characters, it's probably most efficient. Just kind of oscillate between 2 characters. Like Junglechief really likes Velvet and Aizen, whereas I'm kind of liking Laphicet and Eleanor. So we can easily just do this. You know, whenever Junglechief's ready to do a combo to bring in, say, Velvet, he can do that. And meanwhile, I can just, you know, steal these and bring out Laphicet. So we'll just kind of go back and forth that way, and we can both work together, and we both have full access to the system. But we just kind of have to remember one of us is up and the other's down.
And no.
Don't finish him off quite yet, actually.
Okay.
But that's about the gist of the combat engine and how the main things work. But there are a couple really fundamental things that it's easy not to say because once you're used to them, you take them for granted. But this is how the game works. Unlike all the other Tales games, when you're playing normally, there is no line. You just hit directions and you move that way. And even when you're attacking, you can kind of hit those directions to push your character in that direction mid-combo. Though a lot of arts just naturally kind of target whoever your actual target is on, which you change with R1 as per usual. However, if you hold guard, which in this game is L1, you not only build up this charge, which does probably about what it does in other Tales games, make it easier to inflict hit stun, and there'll probably be skills that give it additional effects. It was really powerful in Xillia too once you got those. But you can then hit various directions to do dashes. It does consume a unity or chain and a little bit of that blue meter, but not too much. And the dashes work like you're on the old line, but they have really, you know, the natural inputs. Forward, back, always toward or away, or left or right to do side dashes.
You can...
And they're pretty fast dashes. They're not quite as good as Grace's dashes, but better than about all the other dashes I've seen.
It is worth noting, too, you actually can dash in any direction, but not out of guarding. If you're running around on the battlefield, if you double tap a direction, you will dash in that direction. So it's a little weird. It is a little weird being precise on an analog stick for that, though.
Yeah, and the other downside of that is that it is, again, consuming a unit of chain and a little bit of your meter.
But it is worth noting. there might be times where you'll want to use it. And spells in this game too. Spell canceling in this game, you don't cancel with guarding like in some other Tales games. You cancel with dashes.
Yeah, so you'll start casting a spell. You'll want to get out of it. You'll hit guard, that won't happen, but then you set a direction and you just do a dash and whatever direction you want.
Or double tap, as it were.
Or double tap if you want to do a more annoying input.
Well, if you want to do it in a specific direction. But yeah, that's about everything in this combat engine, isn't it?
A couple very little things. Item timer's real fast. That's one of the faster item timers I've seen in a Tales game. Is there an escape option?
Escaping's done by running at the edge of the arena.
Yeah, escaping's done by running at the edge of the arena.
And it's really fast, if you notice, too.
It's pretty fast. You'll notice outside of battle, you can tend to avoid encounters pretty easily if you want to. You move faster than most enemies, and the rare board is just really fast. And in terms of the character building systems, we've kind of been looking at the menus a bit. We obviously can't read Japanese, but as far as we can tell, this game might have a Berseria-style passive skills system.
Yeah, if you, like, come in here, I believe, let's see here, which... Oh, that was unequipped. Triangle is where it's at, yeah. So you come in here and, like, hit triangle on this system. It's like, you see here, you see all these different skills and abilities. And if I start scrolling through here, you'll see that there's experience tied to them. So you're leveling up in equipment, as you can see those skills and abilities on the equipment.
Yeah, and we can't read Japanese, so we don't know what any of these skills do, what any of this equipment does, and you don't really get that much of it in the demo anyway. But that's, I think, going to be the main system to learn those kind of skills. I have no idea how you're going to learn arts. Probably just level, but we have no real context for that.
Skills like in Berseria. I do know, it is worth noting that if you go to the character screen, see how it's where it says next arts?
Yeah.
So there's obviously probably going to be some non-linear system if it's with that showing there, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that would make sense. Now, I think that is actually everything for this.
Yeah, let's go beat up the other boss.
Or do you just want to restart the demo and just do an efficient run through both halves of it?
We can do that.